Oh, wow. Fuck. Go, Jimmy, go.
Dore rose to fame as the king of Instagram for his extravagant lifestyle and high-stakes poker play. He is currently running to challenge GOP Congressman Randy Fine in Florida's 6th congressional district, while this month the Israeli Ministry of Diaspora Affairs and Combating Anti-Semitism ranked Bilzerian as the most prominent anti-Semitic influencer in the world. Proud to bring on the number one anti-Semite in the world, Dan Bilzerian. Thank you for coming on, buddy.
There we go. That's the introduction I wanted.
Okay, fantastic. Now, I just want to, real quick, I've been wanting to talk about this since it happened, but I figured I'd wait till I had you on. Now, is this the guy you're running against? This is...
Yeah, that beauty of a man, there he is.
He's the guy, he's definitely not doing one meal a day. So now, you called him a fat Jew. Now, you can see he is fat and he is a Jew. And so you were brought on TMZ, and I just want to play a little bit of this because it's funny to me. These guys were foaming at the mouth trying to corner you on this, and let's just see how it went.
You called your opponent this fat Jew. So he's not from Israel, but you called a guy in Florida this fat Jew. How is that not anti-Semitic?
Well, he's a Jewish supremacist, and he puts Israel before America, and I think that, he should be tried for treason.
This fat Jew is
It's
anti-Semitic.
fucking hilarious.
Yes. I mean, that's what you say, but how
No,
about
that's
every
what
single time
that's what I know. I don't say
well,
it. I
he
know it.
literally talks about how Muslims are lower than dogs. So is that Islamophobic?
Yes. Yes, it is.
And Harvey had to think about it for a second.
Take a second there, buddy.
Now, you talk a lot about, this is a perfect example of there's a special cutout. But for some reason, when you say it about someone who's Jewish, that is anti-Semitic. Can you understand their thinking at all? What is that about?
Hey, welcome, everybody. Hit that like and subscribe.
They like to put themselves in a victim category, and that's really the main issue here. And that's why Jewish supremacy is such a threat, is because not only are they the most privileged class in the world, but they've somehow managed to back themselves into a victim category, so they are beyond reproach. If you criticize them, they have this special word, anti-Semitism. And what that does is, because of how they've baked it into the media.
Hey, 15 people. Welcome, guys. Come learn with me.
Gives people pause.
Well, I ripped some
That's
Pokemon cards, so see if I can get a hit.
The funny thing is, most of the
Get him, Dan. Get that fat ass.
aren't technically Semites. They
Can have
don't,
that.
they're not from that region. They're Eastern European, and they don't speak a Semitic language. Semite is an Arab, somebody that speaks Aramaic or
Need to fix his life situation.
language
I'll get it figured out.
And they don't really qualify for that. So it's just kind of like one more thing that they've hijacked and stolen, which is why.
What's up, guys? Hit that like and subscribe.
On the
Pokebad got that
term,
card for the
because
dollar.
I don't feel like it's an accurate description of what they're saying.
And so, what? So here's Randy Fine, and he's only been in Congress a short time. And
I hate
he's
this
already taken
motherfucker.
over $1 million from AIPAC, which is just one of the funding ways that the Zionist lobby influences and funds politicians in the United States. That's just one. So there's, of course, look at Miriam Adelson gave $250 million directly to Trump. So there's other ways for the Zionists too. So that's just one. But walk us through. Now, you were never a political
Hey,
guy.
thanks for that
You
thumbs
never
up,
ran
guys.
for
Appreciate
office. What made you decide? I mean, you're a former, military guy. What made you decide to do this?
Well, I traditionally wasn't a super political guy. I never had any intentions on, being in Congress or anything like that. I think at the start of this, if you want to call it a war, I call it a genocide, that Israel started perpetuating.
I call it a
on
genocide, too.
Palestinians, I think it forced people to kind of start confronting this issue because there's just so much unequivocal data, all these, images, you've got photos, videos of, everything from killing aid workers to double tapping hospitals, which means you basically hit the hospital, then you wait for, the journalists and the family and whatever to come over there and try and save people from the rubble, and then you hit them again. You've got paramedics that are driving down the street with their lights, flashing and whatever, and they're just being gunned down by Israelis. They denied that, and then they later found the footage in the shallow graves that they put these paramedics in. And then you see the children being shot in the head. You've got the soup kitchen workers that were registered with the Israeli military that were obviously targeted because they hit 2 cars miles apart that were registered with the IDF as being soup kitchen workers.
Hey, welcome in, guys. What's up? Hit that like and subscribe, guys. I really appreciate it. Need like 2 more subscribers and I hit 200. That'd be amazing. Hit it, guys. I love y'all.
That this is a war. This is clearly a genocide. And I think the biggest piece of it was that we're funding it and that we're supporting it. And that is, I think, what
I don't support it.
Eyes. And then you start kind of like zooming out and you look at
hey, Brazil. What up, Brazil? What's up, Brazil?
Every dollar that we gave them wasn't just extra money we had lying around. We borrowed every single dollar that we've ever given Israel and given Egypt on behalf of Israel. And so you have to do the compounding interest. Then you look at the wars that we fought, Netanyahu.
Do the compounding interest. Good luck, bro. It's a number you can't fucking calculate.
And so we fought the Iraq war on a false, premise for them, really. I mean, they're the ones that wanted that regime toppled. That cost us, by the most conservative estimates, $8 trillion.
God damn.
If you look at the compounding interest that you have to add to that as well, I mean, we're at over $20 trillion, which is more than half of our national debt. Just
that's
because
fucking
of our
insane.
Country that's never done anything for us. They've sold our secrets. They've attacked us. I could go on and on, but I look at that and I'm like, man, this system is broken. Then you've got the Epstein files that they're refusing to release. I mean, 4 months after they were, according to Congress, legally obligated to release these files, they still have not done so. And then the Iran war was the last straw for me. I mean, that was just such a ridiculous thing for us to get involved in when we had all of the...
I called the Iran war when the fucking Epstein files dropped.
They didn't have
I said, we're going to war.
ICBMs. It was just, anyways, I could go on and on, but the reason I'm getting involved is because I feel like everybody's frustrated and nobody's doing anything about it. And because I have a big following, I feel like I have an obligation to kind of step forward and do this, because if I don't, nobody else will.
And so, let me just, so you've said, a lot of people, I say that,
Jimmy's getting all
I know
scared.
a lot of Jews that don't support Benjamin Netanyahu, they don't support Israel, they don't support Zionism. And so what I always say, in fact, most of the Jews I know,
You're trying to distinguish from Jew and Zionist.
But so what I always say, Zionism. I
See?
say the problem isn't Jews, but it's Zionists. But you don't say
He's
that.
trying to split it up, but watch what Dan does here. He's been asked this question multiple times.
I don't frame it as a Zionist problem because I believe that it's a Jewish supremacy problem, and the reason I believe that is because Jewish supremacy has been causing problems since long before Israel's inception. And I think it's a religious issue. I think it's because they think that they're better than everybody, that they're chosen from God. Their religious texts, say that they're allowed to lie, cheat, and steal from Gentiles. It says that, Gentiles were basically like cattle to them. Not to mention, they believed that Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior for Christians, it is burning in human shit in hell. The Virgin Mary's a whore. And
that's what the Jews believe in the Torah.
On them in Israel. So I look at this as a Jewish supremacy problem, and Zionism is kind of like an offshoot of that.
So what do you? So I've heard that. So Kurt, who's normally on the show with me, he makes that they believe that Jesus Christ is burning in hell and shit. And then I had a Jewish friend text me and said, I'm 50 years old. I've never heard that before. But so where do you get that from?
Well,
Talmud?
there's many sources. The Talmud is one.
Talmud?
Peter Schaefer, he was the head of Judaic Studies at Princeton, and he was also the head of the board at the Museum of I believe it was Jewish History, or the Holocaust Museum in Berlin. And he wrote a book called Jesus and the Talmud, and he lines out exactly all the different passages, word for word, what they say about Jesus Christ in there. And it's really vile stuff, and it is just contrary to, the Christian religion. So it's not something that every single Jew believes. I'm not saying that. I'm not also saying that every single Jew is a problem. What I'm saying is that the Jewish supremacist mindset is causing a big problem. And I also feel like this is a perfect example of, if you were to say Russians are causing problems, you wouldn't have to qualify that with saying, but not every Russian is a problem. When Bill Maher makes all these statements about, Muslims, they're the worst, and the mother load of bad ideas is Islam, and Randy Fine says, kill them all. They never have to qualify that with, but not all Muslims are bad. But for some reason, when you criticize Jewish supremacy or Zionism, you have to then carve out this thing of like, but not every Jew is bad. Like, obviously, not every Jew is bad. I mean, only an idiot would say that every single person, of a 16 million population, ethnicity, religion, whatever you want to call them, is a bad person. I'm not saying that. It would be a silly thing to say that. However, you can say that they are causing a massively disproportionate amount of problems, and that any kind of a supremacist mindset is going to cause issues. Anytime you think that you're better than other people, you look at South African apartheid, you look at, anything, historically, anytime a group thinks that they're better than other people, traditionally they do not treat them with the same humanity that they would treat their own tribe. And so when I look at a Jew, and this is, let's just go back 5 years. When I look at a Jew...
Hey, welcome in, guys. Hit that like and subscribe.
I looked at him as like,
you're learning and doing Pokemon.
There was no worse. I had no animosity towards them. In fact, the idea that a Jew wouldn't like me never even crossed my mind, because in my mind, we've always stuck up for Jews.
No, they hate you, bro.
In World War II, we've always been a friend to the Jews, and so why would a Jew
Nah,
ever
they hate you,
like
bro.
me? And
you're lesser.
When I really started to dive into the religion,
you're lesser,
what their
Dan.
chief rabbis are saying, and
we are all lesser than them.
And see how they've behaved historically in the history that they never teach us about, like the Bolshevik genocide, the Holodomor, all these instances where Jews are mass murdering Christians, which they never talk about in the textbooks and never teach us, and things that preceded World War II. Then you start getting a little bit better of a picture of what actually happened historically, and not just what you were taught.
So, how are you going to combat the attacks that say that you don't make that distinction, that you say we have a Jew problem, and instead of saying we have a Zionist problem? And do you think that maybe it would be smart for your campaign to try to temper that, and so people don't get the wrong idea?
No, fuck that.
Nope. One of the things about my campaign is that I'm not going to craft my message in any way, shape, or form to appeal to people. I'm going to tell the unadulterated truth. It is not going to
That's
be
what we need, the truth.
at all for the group that I'm talking to. I'm going to say what I truly believe. And and you're either going to like me or you're not going to like me, but you're going to like me or not like me based on what I truly believe, and not a crafted version that I think is going to appeal to my audience. I'm specifically not going to craft any message. I'm just going to be completely honest, and I think that's
you got my vote. Don't do me dirty like Dan Bongino.
You're going to get that with Trump, and then you got an absolute narcissistic, pathological liar. And so, that's a very important piece of my campaign, and one of the reasons why I'm running is because I believe that politicians have an obligation to be completely honest. And like I said, I'm not saying that we have a Jew problem. I'm saying it's a Jewish supremacy problem. I mean, I would say that, Jews are causing a disproportionate amount of problems. I'm not going to apologize for that. I didn't choose this fight. And the reason I'm not going to focus on Zionism, because that just focuses on Israel and our support of Israel. And I think this is a much deeper rooted issue. I look at it as what's going on also in America, and the fact that homosexuality and transgenderism and all these things are being pushed on us by the Jewish media, by, Hollywood, which is predominantly Jewish, run by Jews. And that is the message they're pushing on me. That's the message they're pushing on children. And it is kind of, the attack on masculinity. I look at all of this stuff, and it's coming from the Jewish community. This isn't coming from Muslims. It's not coming from Christians. The Talmud has 8 different genders. The Bible has 2. The Quran has 2. So, I don't care about gays, right? I'm not like this homophobic guy. I've always had gay assistants. I've been around gays. I don't mind it at all. My issue is when it's being force-fed to you in a disproportionate amount on every different media platform, and it's being pushed on children. And in every single movie, you've got some subservient beta male that is, kissing his wife's ass. His wife is usually cheating on him. He's apologizing and trying to win her back. And they're basically attacking the white Christian man, if you want to, really just break it down to brass tacks. And so I didn't choose this fight. I'm not like a white nationalist. I'm not a white supremacist or anything like that. But I'm also part white, and I am, I consider myself a masculine man. I'm, traditional.
Yeah, masculine man.
So
That's what we need. An alpha.
Everything that I am, and it's totally
a non-lying, can't be bought alpha. Hey, welcome in. Damn, hit that like and subscribe, guys.
Focuses on Israel, and to me, Israel is a manifestation of that religion. It is the purest form of Jewish supremacy, but I don't think it just stops there.
Do me a favor and double tap that screen, guys.
I look at it that Zionists hijacked the Jewish religion, because if you talk to some of the most conservative Hasidic Jews, they think that the state of Israel is a blasphemy against God, and that they're not supposed to have a state of Israel until the Savior comes back. And so you know about that, right?
Yes, no, that's completely correct. But what I'm saying is, like, before Israel's inception, you had Jewish terrorists over there, the Irgun, the Haganah, the Stern Gang. They blew up the King David Hotel. They were murdering British people. You had, like I said, the Bolshevik genocide. You had the Holodomor. You had Jews literally targeting and killing Christians. I mean, they burnt down over 40,000 churches in Russia, which was a predominantly Christian country, right? And this was an absolute Jewish leadership. Putin said that. Hitler said that. Alexander Solzhenitsyn said that. Churchill said that. In Zionism versus Bolshevism, the struggle for the Jewish soul, he specifically said that the Bolshevik leadership was predominantly Jewish. And so this is Jews targeting and killing Christians, and this is before Israel's inception. So once again, I'm saying Jews have been targeting Christians before Israel was formed. And so I don't like to just focus on Zionism, because that focuses more on Israel, which I'm not saying is not a problem. I'm just saying I think the problem is a little bit more deep-rooted, and I also see it in the United States as well. And you just see that, why would they spit on Christians? And why is that part of their culture? That's not a Zionist ideology. That is a Jewish, looking at Christians as being idol worshipers. And that didn't just happen in the last 100 years. They've believed that. I mean, that's the fundamental difference. And look, people can have different religious beliefs. That's fine. But don't pretend to be my friend. Don't pretend to be my ally and then secretly hate me. That's my issue. Like,
true.
Muslims don't secretly hate Christians. Muslims revere Christ. They look at him as a great prophet. They think that he's going to come back and save the world.
True.
And they believe that the Virgin Mary was a virgin. So, if you look at how that religion looks at Christians, they also preserved all the Christian churches. They have a Christian population in a lot of those Muslim countries, and they've always treated me with a ton of respect, a lot more respect than I would get in Israel. So that's one of the reasons why I don't like to just only say Zionist. And I know that that's like a safer word and what everybody wants to, have you do, but I think that kind of doesn't really focus on the entirety of the issue, which is that the Jewish religion does not like Christians deep down.
So let me give you, get your response to this. So Jewish people make up approximately 0.2% of the world's population. And the reason why it's different than other generalizations...
That's a new fact for me. I had no idea about that.
What do we do with the Jews? Now phrased after 1948 as, what do we do with those Jews over there and the ones over here who support that place? Anti-Zionism is the new Jewish question, which is 5,000 years old with the new coat of paint. How do you push back on that?
Like, push back in what sense? Like, that they're saying that they've been constantly persecuted? Because I also don't believe that narrative either. I look at what they've been doing today. They've been trying to paint themselves as victims in this whole, like, oh, but October 7th, and they tried to genocide the Jewish people, and it's just bullshit. They killed maybe 1,000 people, and Israel allowed that to happen. They also employed the Hannibal Directive, where they killed their own citizens to pump the numbers up. They were shelling kibbutzes with the tanks. They were shooting cars with Apache helicopters, Hellfire missiles. And so, and they took 6 hours to respond in a place the size of the state of New Jersey.
Crazy.
Like, it's just nonsense. It's the most
That's nonsense. I don't believe it either, man. That's crazy.
They allowed that attack to happen. They've been funding Hamas. this whole thing was orchestrated so that they could steal that land and finally get the Greater Israel Project, which they're clearly pushing for today, which is why they keep shelling Lebanon and they refuse to, honor any of their ceasefires or our ceasefires, any of our peace deals, is because they want the Greater Israel Project. They don't want peace. They want more land, and they've been continuing to steal more land ever since, Israel's inception in 1948. I mean, the West Bank was never supposed to be theirs. Hamas has never been in the West Bank, and yet they steal land there. They're bulldozing homes. They're colonizing it. They're setting, the trees on fire. I mean, that's where they, ran over Rachel Corrie. And then after they ran her over in a bulldozer, this is an American citizen. They had pancake parties all over Israel to mock her death. I mean, these are not our allies. These are bastards, and I'm not going to pretend like they're not. It's just, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of them murdering people. I'm tired of them using our tax dollars to do it. And I'm tired of them stealing land. I'm tired of them, attacking their neighbors unprovoked. I mean, they attacked 7 countries in a year. Who else has ever even done
That's
that?
fucking insane.
7 countries unprovoked in a year.
That's fucking
crazy.
Insane. What
So,
the fuck?
I've said before, to speak to your point. So they did a survey, Penn State University, in collaboration with the Israeli polling firm, they did a survey, and in March of 25, among 1,005 Jewish Israeli respondents, nationally representative sample of Jewish Israeli internet users. It was published by Haaretz in late May 25, and the key matches. So what they found out was that 82% support forced expulsion, transfer of Palestinians from Gaza. 56% support expulsion of Arab/Israeli citizens of Israel, and 65% believe a modern-day Amalek exists, with a high percentage seeing the biblical annihilation command as still applicable. So, were you aware of that?
Yeah,
And
Jimmy, with your fucked up ass
how
mic.
do you respond when you hear that?
Fucking on my speakers.
Yeah, I mean, they've done studies, and the majority of Israelis also believe that they're operating in apartheid. I mean, this is not just an Israeli government problem. This is like the citizens believe in this stuff. The citizens set up observation nests to watch the shelling of Gaza. It's a sick society, and it's a society that believes in Jewish supremacy. And so, yeah, I mean, you're seeing it in 4K. I mean, these people are specific. I mean, look, I was in the military. I went through some sniper training. You do not pull the trigger when you are sniping with an optic until you have a very clear view of your target. You know exactly what the bullet's going to hit, and you know it's behind the target. They're shooting children in the head. That's not an accident. When you're a sniper, you don't accidentally shoot a child in the head. You don't accidentally shoot a child in the heart. Like, that's not something that's like, oh, whoops, we just shot at a kid. Like, this is not machine gun fire. This is from a sniper rifle, one shot to the head. And when you look through a high power optic, you know exactly what is on the other end of that, the receiving end of that rifle. And so this is something where it's just very clear. These aren't one-off incidences. I could rattle off, Hind Rajab. I could talk to you, for hours about all the atrocities they've committed. I mean, Hind Rajab, they shot her car. She was on the phone with paramedics. They shot the paramedics. They killed her whole family. These are unarmed people. This is like a 6 or 8-year-old girl. She's in the car. She's on the phone with paramedics. She's crying. They're coming out. They want to save her from the car, and the tank shot it like 370 times, 350 or 370 times. I mean, it's absurd. And these are not, like I said, one-off instances. They've done so much horrific stuff over there that they clearly just do not look at these Palestinians or Muslims as humans. I mean, they're training their dogs how to rape prisoners. They were caught gang raping Palestinian prisoners on the cameras. I mean, you can see it clear as day, and they acquitted everybody. They didn't charge any of them. They became celebrities. They just passed laws saying that, you can kill Muslims, you can get the death penalty for them, but you can't for Jews. I mean, it's like, if this isn't an ethnocentric apartheid state that has no regard for non-Jews, I don't know what is. I mean, this is the clearest example of supremacy that we've ever seen in our lifetime. And for some reason, it's supposed to be ignored because they're Jewish, and I'm just not having it.
I've heard a lot of people make the argument that, well, look at all the Muslims. They get to have all these countries, the Arabs and Muslims have all their countries. Why can't Jews have one country? What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, there's 2 billion Muslims, right? So a quarter of the globe is going to have to inhabit more than 16 million. And it's not like the Jews are homeless. You know, they're in all the nicest, best places in the world. They're massively overrepresented in Beverly Hills. They're massively overrepresented in New York City. They're massively overrepresented in Miami. You know, they've been pretty much welcomed around the world prior to this genocide anywhere. I mean, all the nicest European countries. I mean, you know, everywhere that I would travel was disproportionately populated with Jews. I know because I was friends with tons of them. I actually probably had as many Jewish friends as I had Christian friends, which is an insane thing considering they're, you know, 0.2% of the population, right? So clearly I didn't have a bias. And, you know, and they're all just happen to be rich guys, right? So it's something that you can't say, oh, well, they're like homeless people, they don't have a land or whatever. Like, not everybody gets their own country that they just get to steal from people. And so when you're a small population, you know, you don't have a right to a country. And you don't have the right to just steal a country from somebody else. So I don't feel bad for them. They're like I think they're over half of the billionaires in America. So it's not like these people are struggling. They're the most privileged class in the entire world. And so this idea of like the struggling victim Jew that needs their own country and needs special laws and all this stuff to protect them, it's just bullshit, you know? And I'm not going to pretend that it's not.
Well, you know, I live in Hollywood, and I don't know if you know, but it's run by the Arabs. And
yeah, I can tell. I see it in the movies. Every terrorist Arab.
So let's talk about. Okay, so I think I covered this topic. I think you got it. I think people know where you stand. Hey, I'm going to be in Burbank, California, May 7th, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, Spokane, Tacoma, and then Levittown, New York, June 26th and 27th.